Hello there, Brick Fanatics! So apparently 2025 is going to be a big year for a partnership between the LEGO Group and Formula One racing. Indeed, in honour of this, the LEGO Group has shown off a first little look at what we can expect for 2025, and that first little look looks like this. Right, so there's not a lot going on there, but the LEGO Group does also offer some insight into what we can expect in 2025, and combining this with various rumours that have been bubbling around for a little while now within the LEGO fan community, it does seem like this is going to be a pretty big deal. It could indeed be that Formula One is for 2025 what space was for 2024. According to the official press release, this is apparently a multi-year strategy which is gonna go big in 2025 but going to extend along beyond that in terms of partnering the LEGO Group with Formula One, which makes sense because both brands have enjoyed somewhat of a large growth in the kind of post-COVID era as a lot more people have come to these brands. And it does seem like both the LEGO Group and Formula One have discovered at about the same time that, for example, women actually exist, and indeed a larger, more diverse group of people would be interested in these hobbies if they are willing to actually provide something for them. So one of the big focuses, according to the LEGO Group's press release, for these Formula One sets is going to be greater diversity and inclusivity so that they can sell you an awful lot more stuff. According to the press release, quote, "Data shows that in recent years Formula One has seen a huge surge in growth with younger fans, with more than 4 million children aged 8 to 12 now actively following the sport across the EU and US, while 40% of followers on Instagram are now under 25 years old." So it sounds like for Formula One in particular, that diversity and inclusivity that they're aiming for here is largely younger fans who maybe had not necessarily been served by the Formula One community and the various different merchandising opportunities previously, which is why LEGO is such a brilliant partner, because the LEGO Group can just pump out a bunch of kids' toys in addition to toys that are also designed for slightly older fans. Then on the LEGO Group side of things, you get that wonderful Formula One branding, which is going to be also important in selling an awful lot more stuff, because clearly this is an up-and-coming hobby for a lot of people, and it just makes sense to be able to slap a Formula One logo on the box and then sell more toys. So, okay, what is this actually going to look like in practice? According to the LEGO Group, all of the current Formula One teams are going to have some kind of representation somewhere across the various different themes that are going to be covering Formula One in 2025. This promise to include, quote, all 10 Formula One teams, end quote, does sound very exciting because there's an opportunity for a lot of different types of sets here, and perhaps a lot of likenesses, for example, the recreation of specific drivers in LEGO form, which is something that Formula One fans have been wanting for quite a while because it's just brilliant to have. If you've been following Formula One for a while, you'll be aware of what is known as the Netflixification of the Formula One sport in general, and how there's been a big push to make big stars out of a lot of the faces behind these Formula One cars, like literally behind the steering wheels of these cars. So we've got things like the Drive to Survive Netflix documentary, which gives a lot of insight into the lives of these Formula One drivers. There's been a bigger push for a lot of them to be using social media and to engage with people in a more meaningful fashion, just so that these characters become characters in their own right, in addition to being race car drivers. In practice then, a lot of fans of Formula One are going to want these built-up celebrities in minifigure form, and the mention that we're going to be getting all 10 teams represented does just suggest at the possibility that maybe we're going to be getting minifigures for a lot of these different characters. And again, I'm using that word characters to specify that we're not looking at the people themselves, we're looking almost at their brand personas and how Formula One has been trying to build these up, and how to a certain degree, yeah, we're definitely going to be seeing representations of all of the different teams in terms of the different cars. So you've got your Ferraris, and you've got your McLarens, and you've got your Mercedes, and you've got your Visa Cash app things, whatever they're calling themselves at this particular moment in time, the kind of the B team for Red Bull. You've got a bunch of different brands that are being represented in LEGO form potentially, and then hopefully also the drivers as well. So if you're following a specific racing car team, fair enough, and you can just embrace that brand in LEGO form, but maybe we'll get lucky and also be having the race car drivers for people who are more interested in the human beings than they are in necessarily the particular car brands. Indeed, for a while now, we've been hearing rumours bubbling that we're going to be getting a collectible minifigure series based on Formula One or based on race car drivers in some form or other. And it would have kind of made sense, given that we could, there are 10 teams and normally around 12 minifigures in a series, so we could have had at least one character from each team represented in a collectible minifigure series. Or indeed, we could have the same approach that they've taken with the Dungeons and Dragons minifigures and just have heads that you can swap out, like 2 heads in each box, so that you can have every single team member represented in a collectible minifigure series. But the latest rumours on that front do suggest that we might be getting something slightly different here. Instead of traditional collectible minifigures, apparently, and this is just a rumour, we're going to be getting something more akin to the old Racers series of collectible minifigures. They weren't collectible minifigures, they were little brick built, like you had the car and then just a head on the top and then like a teeny body element. And it's something that I think people of a certain era are quite fond of nostalgically, because it was during a period of weird experimentation for the LEGO group, and it's just something a bit different. And apparently there's some kind of element to that in whatever we're going to be getting for this Formula One collectible minifigure series. I personally don't think it's going to be identical to Racers. I think that that's just a frame of reference that somebody who has snuck out a little nugget of information from the LEGO group is using to kind of vaguely describe what we're looking at here. But potentially what we are seeing is going to be some kind of brick-built car and then a minifigure head that goes on the top. Whatever that looks like, I don't know. But again, you could have potentially every single car team represented and every single minifigure, like race car driver character represented as well, if that is done in that way. And whether or not that is the actual way it's going to be done remains to be seen, but there is the potential here for us seeing some kind of likeness of everybody on the track and every car on the track for Formula One. The wrinkle in that is that not necessarily every driver wants to be a LEGO minifigure, and there are issues around brand licensing for different people. We don't know the specifics of contracts that these Formula One race car drivers sign, but we know that some of them are more eager to get involved in the social media side of things than others. You've got drivers like, for example, Max Verstappen, who apparently hates the Netflixification of Formula One. He just wants to race cars, and he's being bombarded with requests to do all this social media stuff and participate in documentaries and do all of this other stuff. And he's like, nah, I just want to drive a fast car. And fair play to him if that is really all he wants to do, because not everybody necessarily wants to be a celebrity. Not everybody wants to be a character as part of a larger brand push for a sport. Like, I do think it's weird that we expect of our sports stars not only that they are the absolute best in their sports in the world, but also that they're charming and eloquent and social media friendly. Like, that's a weird two things to ask of people. It's like when we need all of our singers to be like Taylor Swift levels of beautiful as well as being really good singers. There are an awful lot of talented people who just don't have that other skill set. But anyway, we don't know the specifics of the deals that Formula One drivers sign. Maybe there's a clause in the contract that says if the LEGO group wants to make a tiny little version of you that is some kind of hybrid monster of car and human, you have to allow them to do that. Another logical way for the LEGO group to feature all of the teams across all of Formula One would be something in the Speed Champions theme, and chances are high that we'll be getting some Formula One Speed Champions sets. Now, for the most part, Speed Champions has avoided licensing particular actual human beings within these sets. It's normally more generic drivers, even when we do get cars that are based on actual cars that you would see on a racetrack. But there are certain exceptions to that. For example, James Bond and Fast and the Furious, where we have licensed characters. Again, characters, these are, likenesses of actors, but playing characters in the same way that I feel that what we're talking about here is we're talking about characters within the Formula One community and the Formula One sport discussion. So we could potentially get something similar here, where we get representations of the drivers in various race cars alongside their iconic cars. Now, these could just stick to the modern teams, but we could also potentially be getting some heritage sets, because one of the things mentioned in the LEGO Group's press release is that we'll be seeing a variety of different heritage sets as well, which pay tribute to the long legacy of Formula One, which is reaching its 75th anniversary. We will be getting, quote, products that celebrate the sport's engineering and technical heritage, which suggests that we're going to be getting something not just based on the long-running history of Formula One, but also specifically dealing with like the inner workings of cars and how they have changed over time. What would be like a dream option here would be perhaps like a set that features various different stages of the evolution of Formula One cars. Like we could potentially get a set where, like the Great Deku Tree, you can build it in multiple different versions depending on which period of history you would like to represent in your finished set. At the same time, it's not like the Great Deku Tree's 2-in-1 approach has been particularly popular, so it might be that the LEGO Group instead opts for something a little bit less fraught. We'll also be getting, quote, moments and icons from the racetrack, pit lane and garages in LEGO brick form. I'm suspecting that some of that will fall into, for example, the LEGO City and LEGO Friends themes. If you look at how LEGO Space has been treated in 2024, you get a bunch of different sets showing off different stages of the process of getting a rocket into space across City and Friends. And I think we'll see something similar in Formula One next year, where you get like your pit crew and what have you in a LEGO form, which is great because they don't get enough representation. I mean, we talk a lot about the characters of Formula One, the race car drivers who are actually in the cars, but they are arguably not as important as the pit crew in certain circumstances who are actually making sure that the cars run, because there's only so far any driver can take a car if it doesn't have wheels. The other big thing that we can anticipate based on how space has been used in 2024 is that we'll be getting some LEGO art sets, hopefully based on Formula One, and there are some great options there. You could either get, like, for example, a display that shows off a race car in motion, which would be very nice, and there's hopefully a lot of scope for using brick-built elements to really show the dynamism of some of these cars in action, or we could get things like a display that shows off tracks, because if there's one thing that the LEGO Group has not done an awful lot of recently, it's race car tracks. You get a lot of race cars in Speed Champions, in Technic, and in various different forms, but the actual tracks, like the world around the race cars, is normally fairly sparse. And so it would be nice potentially to have like an art display that shows off the many loops of a track from like an overhead perspective, so that you can actually see that, and maybe it could be, you know, customizable. You could move things around to do various different tracks. That would be one thing that LEGO fans and Formula One fans have been wanting for a while, that they've not actually been given up to this point. And even if we don't get that in the art theme, maybe we could see that in at a Speed Champions scale in a larger set, where you've got elements of track that you can put together in order to build your own race car track and have something for these cars to actually race on. As for which tracks you end up building, I mean, Monaco is the most famous, I would say. You've got things like Vegas, although that's a relatively new track, and if you're getting to like the hardcore Formula One fans, it's not the most popular. It's more of like a party track than anything serious, and it's just not particularly well designed for Formula One, because it's not really meant to be for Formula One. It's you know, they've left drains and stuff sticking out of the ground that then damages the very low riding cars. So at the same time, a lot of these sets are not necessarily going out to the hardcore Formula One fans so much as they are the kind of the wider, maybe slightly less engaged fan community. And indeed, for a lot of these sets, they're going out to a much younger audience, because that's who Formula One really want to target here. I get the sense from just the feeling of this press release and from the feeling of Formula One in general, that what Formula One are trying to do here with LEGO is get the kids hooked early on, and the adult fans of LEGO that may be purchasing some of these sets as well are maybe not quite as important, because they're already willing to spend an awful lot of money on merchandise for Formula One. I mean, that does need to be said. Formula One is not a cheap hobby for anyone, and to a certain degree, LEGO is going to make this slightly better for certainly younger fans who are wanting an entry point for Formula One merchandise. But for everybody else, if you're a fan of Formula One, you are already used to spending a lot of money. And if you're an adult and you have disposable income available, when some of these LEGO sets roll out and can be quite pricey and expensive, see our previous video on Jabba's Sail Barge for the logistics of what it is like to be a LEGO fan that just desperately wants to buy more LEGO but can't afford it. But with Formula One fans, they're ready to spend the money anyway. There is a large kind of expectation that Formula One is not going to be cheap. So when LEGO sets end up not being cheap, it's not going to be the end of the world for people who are ready for that anyway. One thing that's interesting to point out is how the wider LEGO catalogue looks for 2025, beyond the themes that we would expect to see a large Formula One presence in. So beyond Technic and beyond Speed Champions and even beyond City and Friends, you've got things like Duplo, which is mentioned specifically in the LEGO Group's press release here. And you might think, well, what do 2-year-olds need Formula One LEGO for? Can't it just be regular cars? But it is, I think, as we've said, very much about getting people in young. And it's also worth bearing in mind the wider and diverse group of people that make use of Duplo sets. I've heard the story relayed to me recently of a woman who is in her 60s and who said that she has been a LEGO fan all of her life, but recently, because of mobility issues and because of the challenge of putting together bricks, Duplo has just been the easier bet for her lately, because she's able to grapple with these bricks in a way that the smaller elements of LEGO just is just outside of her possibility right now. And I think that that's very interesting, because you normally don't think of Duplo as being something for anybody over the age of 4. Sometimes, in many cases, even like 2 or 3-year-olds are going to get into those 4+ LEGO sets and forget Duplo very early on. But Duplo does serve a wider audience than you might expect, and there are people who are going to be engaged with Formula One, who want to participate in Formula One, for whom a LEGO set is not going to be quite what they need. And indeed, there's going to be an awful lot of parents who are really into Formula One and who are going to be buying the Duplo sets because it's fun to take those larger, chunkier bricks and play with them with their kids, who are very young in some cases, and it's a great bonding opportunity for families as well. So I don't think overlooking whatever Duplo is doing with Formula One is necessarily a wise choice, because my thinking is we're going to be getting something fairly cool here, even if it is something slightly simpler and slightly less detailed than you would have from a LEGO set. The other thing to bear in mind for 2025 is that it is the year that the Mario Kart LEGO sets come out, and we've already seen a fair few of these long in advance of them actually being released, and so we kind of know what we're getting from this, and there's a lot of the stuff that fans of Speed Champions have been wanting for a while in terms of things beyond just the cars. You've got, for example, the starting line slash finishing line for various races. You've got additional elements that build up the world around the cars. And it is interesting, the timing here, that Mario Kart is showing up at exactly the same moment as this big Formula One push. I don't think that this is necessarily deliberately really tied into the Formula One push for 2025, but the fact that it is showing up at the same moment in time means that this is really a big car year for the LEGO Group, and there is going to be a certain degree of overlap between how these various different LEGO sets can be used, and things that are useful for Speed Champions, etc., are also going to be useful for Mario Kart sets. All of this means in practice that while we don't have a great look yet at what 2025 is going to be like for Formula One and the LEGO Group, there are a lot of different options. And as said, some of this stuff is coming straight from the LEGO Group, from a horse's mouth, so to speak, the car's mouth, so to speak. Some of this stuff is rumour and speculation, and some of this is just wishful thinking on our part here at Brick Fanatics, where we would absolutely love to see some of this stuff, given the true respect it deserves. But certainly what we can definitely be assured to be expecting this year are some kind of representation for every Formula One team that is currently on the circuit, some kind of representation for the heritage of the Formula One brand over the past 75 years, some kind of representation not just for the race car drivers and the race cars themselves, but also for the wider community of people who work together to make Formula One happen, such as the pit crews, etc. These things are definitely locked in. We're going to be seeing sets across various different LEGO themes, including Duplo, including LEGO of some forms, so probably Speed Champions, probably Technic, probably City, probably Friends, possibly Art as well. We're going to be getting a wide and diverse collection of different sets aimed at a wide and diverse collection of different people. And all of that is going to be absolutely brilliant for people who are also fans of Formula One in addition to loving LEGO. And indeed, this is going to be an excellent gateway and an entry point to people coming to Formula One from LEGO and coming to LEGO from Formula One, because the whole point of partnerships like this is that two big major players who have very similar audiences can share and share alike by just exchanging people, so to speak, and allowing fans an opportunity to rediscover something that they may not have necessarily recognized that they were interested in the past. And as mentioned, this is not just going to be about 2025, because while 2025 is probably going to be the big push for Formula One and LEGO, it sounds like that multi-year partnership is going to continue after that point, and there's probably going to be a stronger level of collaboration between these two brands moving forward, which just makes sense because who doesn't love LEGO cars? But what do you think in all this? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. Are you excited for this greater partnership between the LEGO Group and Formula One? What kinds of sets are you hoping for? What do you have hopes for with the collectible minifigure series, for example? Let us know in the comments down below. Make sure you do all of the rest of the YouTube things, so give this video a thumbs up and hit subscribe and the notification bell. If you are going to be making any LEGO.com purchase in the near future, you can use the QR code that is currently on screen or the affiliate link which is down in the description to go straight to the LEGO website. It does not cost you an extra penny to work through our link and make that purchase through these links. It does though help Fanatics by just giving us a little bit of the percentage of that sale. Make sure that you also go to brickfanatics.com for more coverage of all things LEGO and Formula One, and sign up to our newsletter so that you never miss anything LEGO related ever again. Thank you very much for watching and have a lovely day.